Dreaming of a better sleep? Tossing and turning is not your destiny. And Ollie is here to help. Ollie invites you to sink into sweet, sweet slumber to improve your mental and physical health and overall wellness. More than just melatonin, Ollie's ingredients help you unwind your mind for a delightfully dreamy drift off. Sleep is on the way at Ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
Now, you must be very careful, Margaret. It's the girl. Witness the birth. Bad things will start to happen. Evil things of evil.
It's all for you. No, don't.
The first omen. I believe the girl is to be the mother.
Mother of what?
Is the most terrifying. 666 is the mark of the devil. Hey! Movie of the year.
It's not real. It's not real. What's not real? Who said that?
The first omen. Rated R. Under 17 animated without parent. Now playing only in theaters.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
We never found anything at all. My mom joined us as we scoped out the whole house, searching for any clue to what I had just experienced. If this person I had so clearly sensed in front of my door didn't dissolve into thin air, there's just no way they could have gotten away without being seen.
You did not go into the basement after dark. There was a menacing aura down there. I can't imagine what must have happened in the building to trap so many spirits.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 5 stories that will shock you to your core. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First, a story narrated by Paul Brown from r/True Scary Stories. Small towns are a great place to get away, unless they're in Ohio. Then, they're probably haunted.
Back in the mid-1970s, a property came on the market in a beautiful little town named Fairport Harbor, Ohio. The town was extremely small and was extremely established in its old-time ways. Still a nice place to start a family, my grandfather believed. He would buy the house sometime in the mid-1970s, and as time went on, he would meet my grandmother. Together, they would each move 3 children from previous marriages into the house together. 6 kids in a 3-bedroom house. I can't even imagine those days myself. And as time went on, they would have a set of twins, one of which grew up to be my father. Well, when my dad was just a kid, one of his older brothers became severely sick with muscular dystrophy, and he would eventually pass away at the age of 15 due to his complications. My dad, he was still super young, maybe 9 or 10, I think. And after this, my father says he started to see things, to hear things. These disembodied voices in the walls saying the worst things he could imagine. He treated it like it was some mimic that could copy people's voices, you know? Because it would sound like his dead brother. Occasionally, he would see him sitting on the couch, waving him over and trying to get his attention. It scared him half to death, seeing someone like that. A living ghost calling out to him. Doctors eventually tagged my father as a schizophrenic due to the things he said and the age he was. For years, people would come and go, and they saw things here and there. And once my grandfather passed away, I was between jobs and looking for a place to live, and I decided to move into my father's childhood home with him and my grandmother. And this is where shit gets personal for me. I hadn't felt and have not since felt more spiritual energy than in this house. My grandma used to say she would see fingers come up through the vents, motioning for her to come towards them. I asked, who do you think it could be? One time, her response was chilling. The man that hanged himself, she said. Then went on to tell me why the house was so cheap. A man and his wife lived there before, but some money troubles led to the man apparently ending it all. And 3 days later, his wife died of heartbreak. She passed away in the same room that I was sleeping in. I didn't believe her at the time. I thought she was just, trying to scare me. It did explain something I was dealing with at the time, though. My bedroom upstairs had a closet that just gave me the creeps. Just that negative spiritual energy. Eventually, I just shoved my bed up against it so I would feel safe. Until I heard that from my grandma, I never really understood why this closet, made me feel that way. One night, I was upstairs in my room playing a video game. And in the middle of my game, I started to hear the closet door knob begin to twist, as if someone was trying to open it from the other side. Then, all of a sudden, the door just went bam, 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 as it started to slam into the bed. It was so violent that it began to push the bed into me and the TV stand on the other side of it. I ran out of the room as fast as I could, nearly just shitting myself in the process. It turns out that was the corner that woman died in. This wasn't the only incident either. As time passed, more and more things would start to occur that would really make me question if something was living here with us. Something bad. I started to hear voices in the walls that sounded like my relatives, and I'm not crazy. I've been checked out, I once watched a glass of water float through the air and spill on the ground at my feet. All three of us living in the house would watch glimpses of a little old lady walking in and out of rooms throughout the house. One night, my father was in the home's basement, getting showered and ready for bed, when out of nowhere he sprinted up the stairs just screaming. It was him, I swear! I ran over to him, telling him to calm down and, tell me what happened. He told me that he was getting dressed in the bathroom when he looked in the mirror and saw, through the shower curtain, his father, white as a sheet, standing still beside him. And after everything I had seen in this house, I was inclined to believe him. After my grandmother passed away, it only got worse. The voices in the walls just getting louder, calling me by name. I didn't know why they wanted me to go downstairs, but I was always just too afraid to do what they asked, so I'll never know. It got so bad that I was terrified to be in the house by myself. I would run through the halls just scared to death. The house was demolished some years ago, and I thank God the spirits that haunted that home stayed with it to the end. The parking lot that is paved over it reveals nothing of the hauntings we all experienced when we lived in that cursed place. I'm just glad I got out in one piece.
Our next story is told by Kat Carter, who sees a ghost at the worst possible time. On your first day in a new apartment.
Back in the 2000s, I lived in the booming metropolis of Atlanta, had a small family, my husband and our 2 kids, and like so many mothers before me, I felt like I blinked twice, and before I knew it, my oldest was getting old enough to move out and find his own place. So after some searching, my son and his girlfriend, they settled on a beautiful loft apartment. It was an old cotton mill that had been renovated into industrial lofts with restored brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, modern amenities. It looked like a great find. And move-in finally arrived. And that day, I made a few trips back and forth from our home. You know, furniture items, groceries, laundry, etc. At one point, my son and his girlfriend, they left to go get some of her items from her parents' house. And I decided to run across the street to the home goods store and grab them some fun decor items as a surprise. Now, what happened next should not have been as surprising as it was. You know, we saw in some reviews that people believe this apartment building was haunted. A couple residents who I joked about it with, they even confirmed. I wrote it off though, old buildings can creak and hiss, and it's easy to let your imagination get the best of you. So as I was leaving, I walked out to the hall and turned towards the door to lock it with the key my son left me. When I turned back around to leave, there was a tall gentleman in overalls, a work shirt, boots, and a cap standing at the doorway of this apartment across the hall. I said hello, and he touched the bill of his cap, nodded hello. Then, as if there was no door at all, he walked right through the closed door of the apartment. I don't mean he walked through the doorway or over the threshold. He walked through the freaking wall. It does not matter if you've had paranormal experiences before. When you see something like that, it stops you in your tracks. So after I composed myself for a minute, I went about my errands and returned. I told my son what happened, and, he didn't react much. Clearly, my paranormal skepticism had worn off on him. But around 2 weeks later, he called me and asked me to come over. After a few minutes of chit-chat, his voice got low, and he said, "I saw something, Mom. A haint, an apparition, a damn ghost. You should have seen my face." He said they were sitting on the couch watching TV when a man in coveralls and a cap walked through the wall in front of them. He moved all the way from the apartment on the left, across his living room, and through the brick wall on the right. He lived there for a couple of years. It was nice, after all, ghosts included. They often saw the one figure who walked through the apartment, and he would do this on regular intervals around 11 p.m. Didn't interact with them, never looked at them, even when they would try to get his attention. They think perhaps he was some kind of watchman making his evening rounds. There were others you would see, apparitions from the corner of your eye or glimpses of someone as you turn the corner. Everyone in the building agreed, though. You did not go into the basement after dark. There was a menacing aura down there, even in the daylight. So I can't imagine what must have happened in the building to trap so many spirits. And if that evil energy in the basement is any indication, I think I'd rather not know.
This next story comes from Reddit user, you guessed it, Unstoppably Stupid, and is narrated by Brian Jeffords. When you feel something is off, it can set off your senses like an alarm.
This is a bit of a long story, but this happened about 20 years ago. After my divorce, I kept possession of our house until it sold. In order to afford the mortgage, I took on a roommate. He and I became good friends, and when the house sold, we moved into an apartment together. The place we got was one of 3 apartments in a house that had long ago been converted. The owner was renovating the inside, and ours was the only apartment that was ready to move into. We had the entire second floor. It was a 3-bedroom with a kitchen, bathroom, dining room, and living room. All the rooms except the bathroom had doors that led to the hallway and to the room next to it. In theory, one could run a circle through the entire place. I did some research, and way back in the day, the house was a brothel. I'm not really sure this has anything to do with each of the rooms being connected or not. Anyway, we were the only tenants for almost a year, and during that time, a lot of odd things happened. I took the bedroom on the rear side of the apartment, while my roommate, I'll call him Tim, took the front bedroom. I had a day job, and then at night I worked at a local bar or club. Tim only had a day job, and most nights he would come hang out at the club with me. Things started off slowly. Tim had this annoying habit of pacing while he talked on the phone. He would walk down the hall, through the kitchen, into the dining room and the living room, then back down the hall. Every damn time. One night, maybe a month after we moved in, I was awoken by the sound of his voice and footsteps. I looked at the clock, and it was well after 1. The next day, when I saw Tim, I asked him who the hell he was talking to so late. He looked me in the eye and told me to stop messing with him because he had heard me talking and walking. A little more info on the house. It was a 2-story with a basement. The main door, which was a security door, entered into a short hall that ran next to the staircase leading to our apartment. Immediately to either side of the security door were the doors that opened to the other apartments. For most of the first year, getting to the basement was a challenge at best. The landlord had pulled the appliances from the 2-bedroom apartment and put them in the short hallway. No one really needed to go to the basement anyway, and if it was absolutely needed, we had to climb over the appliances. The entire house had these interconnected fire alarms too, so if the smoke alarm went off in apartment 1, all of them went off in every apartment. One Saturday, we were getting home from the club, and as we pulled into the driveway, we could hear the sound of the smoke alarms going off. We immediately ran up the stairs to our place to make sure there was no fire. An important side note is that except for the smoke alarms, neither of the 2 first-floor apartments had power. We did the whole waving at the alarms in every room to silence them to no avail. This clearly meant that one of the alarms in one of the other apartments had been triggered. We scrambled over the mess on the lower hall and went down into the basement to find the breaker that controlled the alarms. As soon as I reached the bottom of the stairs, the hair at the back of my neck stood up and I was covered with goosebumps. Tim asked me if I felt it too. When I asked what he meant, he said he was being watched. Well, I agreed. Besides 3 furnaces and 3 water heaters, the basement was empty. No place for anyone to hide, though we did circle the items to be sure. We tripped the breaker and silenced the alarm. Turning the breaker back on did not result in the alarms going off again, which they would have done if there had been an actual fire. The next day was Sunday, which meant the landlord would not be over to work. We called him to tell him about the ordeal. He showed up and did a walkthrough inspection of the alarms, but no one could figure out why they were going off. He commended us for stopping them, gave us a key to each empty apartment and left. Sunday night came, and we both went to the club again. Came home to the same thing. This time, instead of heading right to the basement, we entered the other apartments to try and silence the alarms. Nothing we did worked, so we returned to the basement. This went on every night that I worked at the club until the apartments were filled. The nights I had off and just went to bed, no alarms. It was like whatever it was that was triggering them was just messing with us. Also, once the 2 downstairs apartments were filled, the alarms never went off again. There was a lot of other activity while we lived there. I still had my class ring at the time. It vanished from inside the small box I used to store it and my spare watch. Just the ring. 10 years later, after I'd moved out, the landlord called me to tell me the newest tenant had gone into the attic, and my ring was sitting on top of a box that they had put up there when they moved in a year ago. We often heard footsteps and conversations from our apartment and the empty ones below us. The creepiest thing that ever happened occurred after he moved out. I was living in the apartment alone, seeking a new roommate or a smaller apartment. I was awoken by the feeling of something tugging on my foot. I looked around the room, which was well lit because it was around 9 in the morning. I did not see anything until I looked at the corner of the room by the door that led to the hallway. It was inexplicably dark, almost as if something was not allowing the light from my curtainless window to find that space. I got out of bed and walked toward it, shivers of cold running up my spine. As I got closer, the darkness gave way to light, and I saw the corner was empty. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe I had been dreaming. I climbed back into bed, and as soon as I drifted back to sleep, something yanked on my foot, hard enough to actually move my entire body toward the foot of my bed. I sat up and looked at the corner, again, shrouded by absolute darkness. At this, I got out of bed and stayed out. I actually left for the day. I was that creeped out.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back. So if you're like me, you'll get your spooks from any source available. The real horrors we tell here on Disturbed, the look in my wife's eyes when I tell her we're eating Pizza Hut again for the 4th night in a row, and often from the latest and greatest horror movies coming out in theaters. If you've got a want for the haunt, we both know that you just can't beat that in-theater viewing experience. That's why we're recommending Regal Unlimited to our listeners. It just makes sense for the terror seeker in all of us. Regal Unlimited is the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself after just 2 visits. Any standard movie, anytime, no restrictions or blackouts. Now, when I'm possessed by the urge to see The Purge, I can satisfy that need as soon as the next one comes out. And trust me, there'll be a new one soon enough. And for those special events, 4DX, IMAX, RPX, or ScreenX, your Regal Unlimited membership gets you into those premium experiences at a reduced cost. You even get discounts on snacks and sodas, a deal so good, it's grotesque. If you're planning to see 2 movies this month, Regal Unlimited is a must-have. Sign up now in the Regal app or on regmovies.com/unlimited. Be sure to use code DISTURBED during checkout for 10% off. We'll see you at the next horror show. Thanks.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Well, hey, podcast listener. My name is Vince, and I'm the host of a show called The RR Show. It stands for Reddit Readings. We're going to sit down twice a week, and I'm going to bring you the most entertaining stories from all of the best subreddits that exist online. Things like malicious compliance, petty revenge, hey, lady, I don't work here. Oh, there's so much more. Lots of great stories and things you won't believe. Like the one time this dude was caught in a bathroom with his friend, and he was slapping them because that was the only way that he could actually legitimately help them. A mall cop comes in with a taser. Oh, yeah, the rest is history. It's going to be fun. There's, I don't know, I got like 20 seconds left, so I don't got much more time to tell you another story. But just join me on The RR Show. It's from Evergreen Podcast, produced in partnership with Wessler Media. So The RR Show, wherever you get podcasts, subscribe today. And it's like an adult story time. Let's hang out together. The RR Show. Subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the podcast. Our next story comes at the scariest moment in your lives, when you're a child, home alone, and you hear something in the house. Narrated by Terra Ashe.
I have this strange story from when I was younger that still bothers me till today. I was still living with my parents at the time. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings, and I was the only one still living at home. Since I was born last, my bedroom wasn't exactly planned for, so my parents converted the attic into a bedroom as soon as I was old enough to need my own space. At the far end of the room is a big window that overlooks the driveway right next to my bed. The floor in my room was some sort of plastic vinyl. It was super loud, so whenever anyone was walking around up here, you could hear it. One day, when I was around 12 or 13 years old, my parents were out shopping and I was home alone. I wasn't paying much attention to whatever they were doing. I was hanging out in my room, whatever. That's why I didn't think anything of it when I heard someone coming up the stairs to the attic. I thought it was just my dad and he hadn't gone to the store or something. However, I saw out of the corner of my eye that my mom and dad were both getting out of the car in the driveway. Just now getting home from the store. Immediately, my eyes shot from the window to the door, my stomach dropped, and my heart leapt into my throat. "Dad, is someone in the house?" I called out. He responded that no, there was nobody else in the house. Right at that moment, the footsteps stopped, and I watched as the shadow crept under the door as if someone was standing just on the other side. My door sat very high in the doorframe. My parents' handiwork when they made the bedroom, I suppose, so I'm sure I wasn't imagining things. There had to be something or someone on the other side. I could have sworn I heard heavy breathing coming from that direction. My dad must have seen my expression through the window when I looked back down to them because his tone immediately shifted. "Don't move, I'm coming right up to check," he called up to me. He disappeared into the garage as he entered the house below me. I sat there on my bed, petrified for what felt like days. My eyes were locked on the door, begging the handle to stay still and the feet casting the shadow on the other side to do the same. I could hear my dad moving through the house as he closed the distance between the first floor and the attic. After a few seconds, the shadow vanished from behind the door and I heard footsteps moving away from me. Only a couple moments later, my dad was banging on the door and asking me if I was all right. I called out to him, "Yeah, what was that?" The crazy thing is, he swears he didn't see anyone when he was coming up the stairs to my room. There are no windows, no other doors, only a narrow hallway and staircase to my room. He would have had to see who or whatever was at my door just a moment ago. We both searched the whole attic together, including the storage room off to the side of my bedroom, and we never found anything at all. My mom joined us as we scoped out the whole house, searching for any clue to what I had just experienced. If this person I had so clearly sensed in front of my door didn't dissolve into thin air, there's just no way they could have gotten away without being seen. My parents sat me down and asked if I had really seen that or if I was just imagining things and freaked myself out. I swore up and down that I wasn't lying, because I know what I saw and heard. There was something in front of my door. To this day, I have no idea what that was. I slept downstairs for a couple nights after that until I could calm down enough to be alone up there again. I'm just glad my parents got home when they did that day. Who knows who or what was coming up to me and what they would have done to me if they had gotten through my door.
Our final story is narrated by Adam Alderson from r/paranormal. My sleep paralysis demons are the same species.
I had a period of time during my senior year and a portion of my mission when I would get sleep paralysis. It usually isn't like these experiences. These only happened 2 times. The first time was during my senior year. It started off as it usually does. I woke up and my body wouldn't move. I tried to turn on my lamp. I think I moved my arm towards it and then blinked, and my arm was back to where it was. This is the usual thing that happens to me, but this time, I thought it would be scary if there was a person in the room. And then all of a sudden, there was a mangled girl on top of me. I could still breathe, so it wasn't the same experience as what people usually say happens to them, but it was on top of me. She was pale white and had streaks of black that looked like the black paint that Arnold had on in Predator, just all over her body. I usually don't scream when weird things happen to me. I was very scared, but I was able to stay semi-calm. I kept telling myself, I'm still semi-dreaming, and I was able to wake myself up by breathing hard. As soon as I turned on my lamp, she was gone. I thought it would be the last time I had sleep paralysis since I stopped experiencing it after I had left for my mission. My mistake. There was a difference between my mission sleep paralysis and my senior year paralysis. During this new sleep paralysis wave, it was more like having out-of-body experiences. I would be awake and sit up, turn, and look at the wall or around the room. I would be able to see the room just the same as I could when I was awake, which I thought was weird because when I did wake up, I would wake up lying down with my eyes closed, not sitting up or in the position that I was in when I was having sleep paralysis. When this happened once, I woke to see the door opening and a figure crawling in. I could see the room very well because of the streetlights outside. It was also pale white with black stripes all over its body, just like my demon from high school. It came to the foot of my bed and had the biggest grin, then looked at my mission companion whom I shared a room with. The weird thing was, as opposed to my high school sleep paralysis, I remember I felt no fear at that moment. When the demon looked at my companion, I actually felt really angry towards it, so I lunged for it. It held up one of its hands, and the left half of my body started to cramp really bad. It was like it was frozen in place. This pissed me off more, though, and I was able to push through it to slowly get closer. When the demon saw this, its face shifted from a huge smile to almost annoyance as it scowled at me and crawled out of the room. When it finally left my side, I had a falling sensation like I usually do in these sleep paralysis episodes, and I woke up in bed. I was lying on my back. The entire left half of my body was cramping up. And when I say half, I don't just mean my arm and leg. My entire left side was seized up. Half my face was cramping to the point my mouth on the left side had tightened up, flashing my teeth. I don't think it was a seizure. I don't have a family history of seizures or anything. Super young to be having a stroke, and I haven't had anything like that since. I still had motor functions in my arm and leg during this. It felt like it does when a muscle cramps up. It was just so freaky to see a sleep paralysis demon again after so long without having an episode like that. And at this time, it seemed like it was going after my mission companion, and I was able to stop it or something like that. Was so strange. I wonder if it was the same demon or two different ones. Maybe of the same species, since they look the same.
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. For the next 2 weeks, patrons will be voting to decide the new podcast art for the show. Interested? Follow the link in the description to join soon, before voting ends on April 15th. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producers are Noah Fouts and Elizabeth Flood. Our audio engineer is Nathan Corson. Executive producers Bridget Coyne and Gerardo Orlando. Until next time, stay safe out there.
introduce you to Barry Clue, an authorised financial advisor from New Zealand and a very special kind of stain on humanity.
He was a very knowledgeable young guy.
He was a registered financial advisor.
Type of guy that was bending over backwards to help you.
Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that Barry sounds like a great guy, and you'd be right. Well, right up until the point when you're wrong.
It was all fictitious.
She stole from my son, who has a disability.
Chris never knew. He died believing that we're all taken care of.
A psychopath is somebody who lacks empathy, acts impulsively. I think there's a strong case that Barry might be all of those things, actually.
To find out how Barry Clue stole over $15 million from 81 victims, subscribe to Clueless, The Long Con. That's Clueless, spelt Klooghless.